As many are aware, the Commonwealth of Virginia is often a site for the production of motion pictures. The film industry often comes to Virginia, Carolinas, North Carolina, to film some of the better-known epics and historical dramas and all sorts of others. In Charlottesville, host of the Virginia Film Festival, is often one of those sites. Many celebrities, in fact, live in the environs of Albemarle County in Charlottesville, and I was frequently bumping into them when I was a pastor there at Church of the Incarnation, a wonderful parish community in Charlottesville. And one day I received a call from the production manager on behalf of the director of a film that was being shot in a home in Albemarle County, not far away, but in the bounds of our parish. And he asked if he could speak to me. I said, sure. And he said on the phone, he said, I wonder if you could do something for me. I said, I'd be glad to help if I can. And I'm sort of like everybody else. I'm going, the stars are beginning to fill my eyes. The red carpet, here I am on Inside Edition. He said, I need props. I said, props? He said, yes, we have a scene where the family is gathered, and they're a kind of an old-time Italian family, and we want to make sure that since they're gathered in the dining room, that we have, religious articles in the room and on the wall. And we're hoping that maybe you could gather those for us, and we'd be glad to give them back to you, but we would need to use them as we shoot these scenes and some other scenes in the house. Blessed Mother statues and Last Supper pictures and things like that. And I thought, well, no, I really don't know, but I do know one thing. And I said, just tell me, what is the scene that is going to play in front of these images? He said, oh, just a couple of scenes of them having dinner. I said, oh. I said, what's going on at dinner? He said, oh, nothing. I said, nothing? I said, well, then you don't need anything on the walls. He said, oh, well, they're going to have a big argument, that's all. I said, well, really, what about? Oh, they said, that's not important, but the father is going to argue with the daughter about, something she's doing with her boyfriend, and they're going to have a big fight, and, I said, oh, no, I can't help you. He said, you can't? I said, no. I said, I really don't want myself to be a part of portraying the church in a bad light. He said, oh, it's not going to be a bad light. I said, I'll decide that after I see the film. See, I knew, and it was right, by the way, that when you see a film or a television show, always remember that there's nothing there by accident. That sounds like such an obvious thing, but we don't remember it. I mean, when you look at that scene, for example, and the father is screaming at his daughter because she's not married and going to bed with her boyfriend, and he's discovered it, and they flash onto the picture of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, they're saying something about him and about that, aren't they? And when you hear something in a sitcom where they mention somebody's faith and everybody laughs, that didn't happen by accident. Somebody thought that up, you see, and put that in the script on purpose. Well, it happens all over in the media, constantly. And it happens a lot in our society. You see, there are, throughout our culture, at this point in our history, a lot of things that are intended to transform us and society, to conform us, all of us individuals, into a societal vision of what is right. When, for example, in our paper, as they're opening the Olympic coverage, which I read every single day, I've loved the Winter Olympics to my absolute utter amazement. I've loved the Winter Olympics. And then at the bottom, there's an article about how much birth control they've used in the Olympic Village. That's not an accident that that's there. The smirk that it's supposed to raise, the rolling of one's eyes, and those are our athletes, is supposed to allow us to just shrug off what seems to be horrendous promiscuity in people who should know better. Eventually, if we shrug it off enough, pretty soon, it doesn't bother us. when we are given an agenda and told to be compassionate and tolerant, that we ourselves may not believe in a certain behavior, like the termination of the unborn because their gender is wrong, or because they could be potentially disabled, that they have a value even in and of themselves, but be tolerant of those who do, who aren't able to see that or believe that, who make the hard decision. You see, what we're really being told is that we should be intolerant of our view, that they should be defended with everything we are. When we're told that the elderly should be culled over time because the care for the elderly as we live longer requires more money than our government can afford, and that our tax dollars perhaps should be a part of this in any health care plan, or abortion in any health care plan, we're being told that what we need to do is sublimate our understanding of life for the sake of someone else's tolerant understanding. But you see, it's very intolerant, isn't it? Well, the reason I offer that is because you see all of those things that work in our society, and work in much smaller ways, in our schools, when our young people are being told that unless they succeed in everything, they have failed at all things. That kind of culture of being involved in every single thing and star at it. It's not enough just to be a teenager and to grow. We're being transformed into a certain kind of culture where productivity is everything, and consumerism is the way to status, to power, and to have authority and looks, and the body that requires it. Well, that's all that's important. That's transformation. Transformation is any time something happens in our life from the outside that allows us to become more and more of what we're not. To become, in a sense, less than who we are. To give ourselves over in assent to the negative and the hurt. It's a very dangerous thing, though it may be subtle. When we are crossed by someone and we write them off. When we have a grudge and we nourish it inside of ourselves with an anger that becomes a cold ember, always burning, we learn to withdraw from any kind of attachment and to be suspicious of everyone. When we find ourselves reluctant because of what our friends might think to really listen to our parents as the voice of God in our life, well, we are being transformed into whatever our class thinks is good, our peer group thinks is right, our society or our party's agenda thinks is just. It's why the Transfiguration is so enormously important and powerful. You see, the event we hear about in the gospel today, this living word, follows an extraordinary interchange between Jesus and his 12 and his disciples. He asks them who they think he is, and they identify him, that he's the Messiah and the Anointed One. And then he basically confuses them by telling them that that's true, but to know that in order to be this Messiah sent by the Father, that he would have to be broken, that he would have to be handed over, even he would have to die, but that he would rise again. And all of the scriptures that describe that event say that they all fell silent. And there's nothing that intervenes most of the time between that encounter, except in the Gospel of Matthew, and this experience of transfiguration. It is as though a silence falls over the journey of Christ, because they can't get their heads around God's messenger having to go through failure. But our Lord understands that when God assumes humanity to himself, when he becomes